Hi, Sarah from Waves and Wild here, and welcome to another video. I've had a few people in the group recently who are new to using PDF patterns and have been struggling with how to use a print at home pattern. And if you've never seen one before, they are very different to the old-fashioned paper patterns that you may be more used to using. So I thought it'd be really useful to do a video to show how to access a print at home pattern, the different advantages of it, and how to print one and put it together. It's all incredibly simple once you know what you're doing, but it may be a little new, and in which case stick with this video and I will show you what to do. So the first thing you need to do is you need to open up the print at home pattern that you wish to use. All Waves and Wild patterns come with 3 different pattern types. There is print at home, copy shop, and projector. Copy shop is the one that you need if you want to send it to a professional printer to print it out on large pieces of paper. And projector is the one you want, clues in the name, if you have a projector and you are going to project your pattern onto your fabric. The simplest one, and the one that most beginners would start with, would be the print at home pattern, which I have opened up here. I've opened up the Sandcastle bucket hat because my boys picked out some fabric for some new hats yesterday, so I'm going to be printing out this one to use today. Now, your computer or your device may default to a particular program to open it with. That means that when you click on it, it will automatically open in a particular program. For me, that is Adobe Acrobat, and that is a good thing. That is the most reliable program to open PDFs with, and that is the one that you should be using. I do have a paid version of Adobe because I use lots of their programs, so I don't know whether I might have some features available to me that are not on everybody's. However, there is a free version. If you look just here, it says Adobe Acrobat Reader, the world's most trusted free PDF viewer. You do not need to pay for this. Okay, you can download this free version and it will do everything you need, and it is just as accurate and fabulous as any paid version of any Adobe product. So here we have the Sandcastle bucket hat opened up in Adobe. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is the layers. This is one of the fabulous things about PDF patterns that you don't get from traditional paper patterns, is that you can select just the layers that you want to print. Now, Adobe did an update recently. The layers used to be over here on the left-hand side of the screen. They're now over here on the right, but you're looking for this little symbol here that looks like 2 diamonds on top of each other. And that, when you click on that, it will open up all of the layers in the pattern. So in my patterns, each size goes in its own layer, and you can switch off the ones you don't need. So I am going to be printing this out for Jack, who wears a small adult size hat. So I've turned off all the sizes apart from small adults. One thing that's really, really important is that you keep this layer switched on, the pattern information layer. The pattern information, the clues in the name, it has the pattern information in it. It has the labels and it has these lines and circles around the outside, and they are really important. If I turn that off, all I have left are the pattern pieces, but I'm not going to be able to use that because it doesn't have enough information. And the other thing that's really important in the pattern information layer are these scale check squares. They're going to be really important to make sure that my pattern prints out correctly. So you don't have to use the layers function. You can leave all of the layers switched on and that's completely fine. But I find it really useful to switch off the ones that I don't need. So make sure you leave on the pattern information and the size that you want. The next thing that you need to do is you need to print. So one really important thing when printing print at home patterns, PDF patterns, is that you get the scale correct. Now you'll see here that my printer has defaulted to fit. This means that it will take whatever's on the page and it will fit it into what it thinks is the best layout on the page. That is not what we want. You either want to click actual size or custom scale 100%. I always use 100%. And I find that that prints out really well for me, but actual size should work just as well. For this pattern, it's only a few pages long, and I know that I need all of the pages for this one. If you are doing a larger pattern, then chances are you do not need all of the pages, and you just need to check in the instructions. It will tell you which pages you need for the options and the size that you're doing. So once you've checked that you've got your printer settings correct to 100% or actual size, you can go ahead and print. Here you can see my pattern printing out. This is just a regular home office printer. There's nothing fancy about it. I'm using A4 paper because that's what's common here in Australia, but the pattern will also print out just fine on legal or letter-sized paper. Just make sure you've got those print settings set at 100% or actual size, and your pattern will print out correctly on any of those types of paper. Now we have our printed pattern in front of us. There are a few things we need to check before we go any further. And the first is that we need to check that the pattern we see on the printed page in front of us is the same as the pattern on the screen. This is to make sure there haven't been any printer errors. Now, I've only actually had this happen to me once, but I do know some people really struggle with printer errors, and it is more common with HP printers, but it can pop up just randomly at any time, and you can get what's I call a communication error between your computer and your printer, where your printer and your computer haven't spoken to each other properly, and therefore they haven't been able to print it out correctly. So if you look on the page here, I've got a nice curve for this pattern piece. That's the same as the curve on the computer. With some printers, you'll get jagged lines going on where there should be curves, and if you see a jagged line where there is a curve on the screen, that is a printer communication error. This can sometimes be fixed by going into your printer settings and choosing print as an image. For some reason, this makes the computer and the printer communicate better, and you should be able to print out your pattern correctly that way. But there's the first thing you need to check is that what you see on your paper is the same as what's on the screen. And if not, you might just need to tinker with your computer or your device or your printer settings to get that correct. Now, next thing we need to look at are these scale check squares up at the top. These make sure that your printer has printed out at the correct size. I am going to check my inch square because I have my quilting ruler handy. But both of them will do the same job. You just need to check that it measures exactly what it says it should. And I mean exactly. So if you have the 2 centimeter square and it measures 19 millimeters, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. You might think that that's not a lot, but it's 5%, and 5% in a pattern is going to make a big difference, probably a whole size. So this is absolutely essential to do, and do it every time you print out a pattern, even if it's printed out correctly before. You never know, something could have updated in the background, the settings could have changed without you knowing, and it might not print out at the correct scale. And it's so frustrating to go all the way through a project and then they discover that it wasn't at the correct size. So it's super simple. Grab a ruler. I do recommend using a hard ruler, using a plastic or a metal ruler, rather than a flexible tape measure if you have one, just because flexible tape measures can stretch over time. And a hard ruler, a solid ruler, is going to be more accurate. So you need to make sure your scale check square is correct before you move on any further. The next thing you need to do is just lay out your pattern roughly and look at the numbers. So you can see in the middle, they are quite faint, so they don't get in the way of the rest of the pattern. But here we've got a 1, a 2 at the top, and a 3 and a 4 at the bottom. If you go and look in the instructions, in every single Waves and Wild set of instructions, there is a print layout, and that shows you how many pieces of paper there are in each row and each column, just so that you can see, okay, in this case, it goes 1 and 2 on the top row, 3 and 4 on the bottom row. They're not all in one long row. It's 1, 2, and then 3, 4. And the print layout, it just makes it really easy for you to make sure that you get them in the correct place. So here I have roughly laid them out so I know what it is that I'm going to be doing. The first method I'm going to show you uses a window to help you get those pages aligned. Now, I've already stuck 2 of my pages up here. I have used some washi tape to stick my pattern to the window, and then I use regular sticky tape to stick the pages together. You may not need to stick yours to the window. I've mostly done it so that it's a little bit clearer for you on the camera and that I'm not holding it up at awkward angles. You need to use the light coming through the window to help you see how to align those pages. So you will line up the little circles on each side and the line going across. It's important that all of those elements line up, the circles at either end and the line. Sometimes you'll just need to adjust things slightly and make sure that both ends are aligning correctly. But by having it up against the window, it makes this step super easy because you can see both layers of your 2 pages, and you can make sure that they align up really beautifully, one on top of the other. So you need to do that for all of your pages. You need to do one at a time and make sure that all of your circles and all of your lines are aligned correctly, and then your pattern will be stuck together and it will be ready to use. So now I'm going to show you 2 methods that you can do without a window. First of all, like we did at the beginning, just lay them out roughly in the right place so you know which pieces you are attaching to which. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in this one. Then you are going to need some pins, just regular pins that you would use in your sewing, and you are going to poke them through the center point of each circle. And if you poke it through the top layer and then go again through the bottom layer, those 2 layers will be exactly on top of each other in the right place. The circles will be perfectly aligned. They can't help but be, because you have threaded that pin through both of them. You do need to do both sides. So there's a circle on each side of the page. So I just need to do the second one. Otherwise the 2 pages can slip about. But here I have put my 2 pins in, and then I can just flatten the rest of my page and stick it down with some sticky tape. And those 2 pattern pieces will be perfectly attached. It's worth noting here that I do tend to use sticky tape, but glue stick works really well as well. I have been told to always use a good quality glue stick because apparently the cheaper ones have a bit too much water in them and they can make your pages go a bit bumpy. I haven't experienced this myself because I tend to use tape, but I have it on good authority that a good quality glue stick is really good. And actually one of the benefits of using a glue stick is that you can lift and reposition if you don't get it quite right the first time because it doesn't stick straight away. So that's one option, is that you can stick a pin through the center of each circle and you will be able to align your pages that way. The last way is perhaps the most traditional way, and it's the way that I actually still use myself, is that I snip away a piece of each corner to allow me to see the underneath layers. So here I've just snipped through the center of the circle on one of my pieces of paper. And then I can place that piece of paper on top of the one below it. And I will be able to see the line continue. So I can see it on the top piece of paper and I can see it on the bottom piece of paper. And I can align them really carefully and stick them down. Another tip when sticking, if you are using tape, make sure you tape within the pattern piece. Don't just be merrily taping your pieces of paper together, because if you tape outside the pattern piece, when you come to cut the pattern piece, it will fall apart because your sticky tape will be in the bit that you're discarding. So here I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to chop away the corners on these 2 pieces here and place that piece of paper on the one below it. And I can really easily see those circles and lines aligning. This is just personally the one that I use most often. I find it really easy and I get a good result from it. Now, finally, to do this last central piece, I could cut a chunk out of this circle here to allow me to place it on top of the other side. Or I could just trim away the whole side. Either works. The chopping away a little chunk out of the circle involves less cutting if you're using scissors. I have an old rotary cutter that I don't like that I use instead for paper. And so it's actually super quick for me to just slice away one edge like that, but both would work completely fine. And then you can just place that last piece of the pattern on top and I have my entire pattern stuck together. So after you have stuck all of your pieces together, all that remains is to cut them out and use them. And it's worth noting as well that some patterns, such as say the conjoining dress or the storybook cape, would use a lot more pages than this. The process is exactly the same. You've just got a lot more pages to deal with. And here I have my finished pattern cut out and ready to turn into a hat. Hope you found that helpful. Make sure to save this video and subscribe so you know when the next video comes out.